Don't drink that. Maid's daughter shouted. Billionaire froze in shock when he saw why. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's jump into today's story. In a grand mansion tucked away in the hills, the kind of place where marble floors and crystal chandeliers reflected the wealth and power that filled every inch of the space, a little girl stood in the corner, trying to be invisible. Her name was Emma, and she was the maid's daughter. The mansion was home to billionaire Harrison McAllister, a man whose name was whispered in every corner of the business world, a man whose wealth seemed endless, and whose arrogance was even greater. He walked through his mansion as if it belonged to him and everyone inside it, including the staff. The maids, the butlers, the cooks, all were invisible to him. He barely noticed the people who kept his world running. Emma had learned long ago how to be silent, how to blend into the background. It was the only way to survive in a house where everyone was rich, powerful, and so far removed from her life. She would clean the rooms, carry out the trash, and serve the meals, always unnoticed, always unimportant. But today, something was different. Harrison McAllister was hosting a dinner party, a lavish affair with some of the wealthiest individuals in the city. Emma had been assigned to serve drinks and ensure everything went smoothly. As she moved between the guests, she overheard snatches of conversation about stock deals, real estate, and expensive vacations, conversations that made her feel even more like a ghost in this world of luxury. She had no interest in their world, but she couldn't help but overhear. She didn't belong here, and she knew it. At the head of the table, Harrison McAllister was enjoying the attention, laughing at the jokes of his fellow billionaires, unaware of the young girl quietly serving the food. But then, as if by chance, Emma overheard something. That would change everything. One of the guests, a well-dressed man with a deep voice, raised his glass to Harrison. "This wine is incredible," he said. "Where did you get it?" Harrison smiled, his eyes gleaming with pride. "It's a rare vintage," he said, "imported from Italy. Only a handful of bottles exist. I've been saving it for a special occasion." The man took a sip, savoring the taste. But Emma, with her sharp eyes, noticed something odd. The bottle of wine was new, too new, and the label was slightly off. She had seen bottles like it before, cheap imitations sold in tourist shops. She didn't know much about wine, but she knew this wasn't the rare vintage Harrison had claimed it to be. As she moved closer to refill the glasses, she hesitated. Something in her gut told her this wasn't just about a bottle of wine. She watched as Harrison's guest continued to drink, oblivious to the dangerous truth. Her heart raced. She had to act fast. She stepped forward and shouted, "Don't drink that." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Emma, the maid's daughter, who had dared to speak up. Harrison froze, his glass halfway to his lips, his expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. The room was filled with tension as Emma's words hung in the air. She could feel the weight of their stares, the disdain in their eyes, but she didn't care. She had to stop what was happening. Harrison lowered his glass slowly, his gaze fixed on Emma. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice cold and commanding. Emma took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I said, don't drink that," she repeated. "It's not what you think it is. It's not real wine. It's a cheap imitation." The guests stared at her in disbelief, and for a moment, Emma thought she might faint. But then, Harrison set his glass down, a slow realization dawning in his eyes. He turned to the waiter who had brought the wine and nodded sharply. The waiter hesitated but then opened another bottle. This time, it was the real vintage Harrison had promised. The truth was out, and everyone was stunned. The room buzzed with murmurs, and Harrison, once a man who saw everyone around him as insignificant, now looked at Emma with a new understanding. In that moment, everything changed. The room was filled with a stunned silence as Harrison McAllister, the billionaire who had once been so sure of his control over every situation, stood frozen, his glass still hovering in midair. His guests, the powerful and the wealthy, exchanged confused glances, unsure of what had just happened. Emma, the maid's daughter, had done the unthinkable. She had interrupted the dinner party of the century with a bold warning, saving Harrison from drinking what could have been a dangerous, possibly lethal substance. As the tension hung in the air, Harrison slowly lowered his glass and set it down on the table. His expression was no longer that of the confident, self-assured billionaire everyone knew. Instead, there was a flicker of uncertainty, perhaps even fear, as he looked at the young girl who had just exposed his vulnerability. His voice, when he spoke, was low and controlled, a stark contrast to the mockery he had shown her moments earlier. "How did you know?" he asked, his words careful, but with an edge of genuine curiosity. Emma stood there, her heart pounding, her eyes focused on the floor. She had no intention of speaking up, but something had told her this was her moment. Something about the bottle, the label, the way it had been handled, it all seemed wrong. She had seen cheaper imitations sold on the street, and her instinct had kicked in. She had to act. She had no answer to give Harrison, not one that made sense in the world he lived in. She wasn't trained in wine, or business, or the finer things that he was used to. But she knew one thing. She couldn't let him drink it. "I just knew," she said quietly, still not meeting his gaze. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic, but there was no turning back now. The billionaire turned to his staff, his gaze sharp, commanding. "Check the bottle," he ordered. The waiter, who had been standing silently at the side, quickly took the bottle and handed it over to one of the assistants who began inspecting the label. The silence in the room was deafening as the staff examined the bottle under the harsh lights. The guests waited with bated breath, unsure of what would happen next. Moments later, the assistant spoke, confirming what Emma had already suspected. "It's not the vintage, sir. It's a counterfeit." The revelation sent a wave of shock through the room. Harrison stood frozen, his mouth slightly agape as he processed the truth. His prized vintage wine, the one he had boasted about for so long, had been a fake all along. The room was still, the hum of conversation now replaced by the sound of his own disbelief. He had been fooled. And what was worse, he had nearly fallen victim to his own pride. His eyes, now locked onto Emma, softened for a moment. She had saved him, not with wealth, not with power, but with her sharp eyes and instincts, things that the rich and powerful around him had long since lost. The guests, once eager to enjoy the evening, now watched in awe, some even with a hint of respect for the young girl who had dared to speak up. For the first time, Harrison saw her, not as the maid's daughter, not as someone beneath him, but as someone who had just changed the course of the evening. "Thank you," he said, his voice unexpectedly sincere. Emma could hardly believe what she was hearing. Thanking her? The same man who had mocked her just hours ago was now acknowledging her with respect. It felt surreal. She simply nodded, still too stunned to say anything. The party, which had been on the verge of chaos, seemed to settle into a new kind of tension, one that was born not from fear, but from awe. Emma knew she had done the right thing, but she couldn't help but wonder what would come next. Would the guests now see her as more than just the maid's daughter? Or would they return to their dismissive attitudes, now that the shock had worn off? Harrison, still processing the events, turned to his guests. "I think this calls for a change in our plans," he said with a chuckle, trying to regain control of the situation. "Let's toast to Emma. Without her, we might not have made it through this evening." The guests, still reeling from the unexpected turn of events, raised their glasses, this time in honor of Emma. It was a small gesture, but to her, it felt like the world had shifted. She wasn't invisible anymore. For the first time, she was seen. As the night wore on, the tension in the room gradually shifted from discomfort to something else. The guests, who had been so ready to dismiss Emma, now watched her with a new sense of curiosity and respect. Harrison McAllister, once the center of attention, now found himself watching the young girl as she continued her duties, moving between the guests with an air of calm that belied the storm she had just caused. Despite the surprising turn of events, Emma felt an odd sense of calm wash over her. The earlier anxiety, the fear of speaking out in front of these powerful people, had faded. She wasn't invisible anymore. Harrison, who had been silent for a moment, cleared his throat and stood up. The room fell quiet again, all eyes turning toward him. "Everyone, I believe we owe Emma more than just our gratitude tonight," he began, his voice carrying across the room. "Her quick thinking has saved us all from a potentially disastrous situation." His tone was warm, genuine in a way that it had never been before. He had always been the one in control, the one who dictated the terms. But now, for the first time, he was acknowledging someone else's strength, someone he had once ignored completely. The guests nodded in agreement, their murmurs of approval adding to the surreal feeling in Emma's chest. She was still trying to wrap her head around the fact that these powerful people were now looking at her in a different light. It felt strange, almost unreal. I think we can all agree that tonight's dinner could have gone very differently if not for Emma, Harrison continued, raising his glass. So, let's toast to her bravery and her intelligence. The guests followed suit, lifting their glasses in a unanimous gesture of respect. Emma's heart skipped a beat. This was the moment she had never thought possible. For years, she had been nothing more than a shadow in this house, someone who was there to serve and disappear. And now, in a single moment, she was being recognized, honored even, by the very people who had once ignored her existence. Harrison looked directly at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Emma," he said, his voice soft, "you've done something tonight that many people in this room couldn't have done. You've shown us all that it's not just wealth and power that shape the world, but knowledge, instincts, and courage." Emma could hardly believe what she was hearing. The billionaire who had once treated her like a mere servant was now speaking to her like she was someone important. It was more than she could ever have expected. "Thank you, sir," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't know what else to say. How do you respond to someone who had belittled you just hours ago, and now is offering you praise? "No, thank you," Harrison said with a nod. "You've earned more than just a thank you tonight. I'll be making a donation to your family, to ensure you never have to worry about anything again." Emma's eyes widened in shock. A donation? For her family? She had never imagined anything like this. "I appreciate that," she said, still in disbelief. "But I don't need anything from you." The room was silent for a moment, as if they were all waiting for Emma to explain herself. Harrison raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? You've just saved my reputation and possibly my life." "I'm sure," Emma replied firmly, her voice steady. "I don't want money. I just wanted to do the right thing." There was a long pause, and then Harrison smiled. A genuine smile, not the smug grin he often wore. "I respect that," he said, "and I think everyone in this room does as well." The atmosphere in the room had shifted. What had started as a night filled with pretense, arrogance, and indifference had turned into something else entirely. The guests were no longer just looking at Emma as the maid's daughter. They were looking at her as someone who had changed the course of their evening, someone who had shown them a different way of seeing the world. As the night drew to a close, Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had come to this mansion to work, to serve, and to remain invisible. But now, she was leaving with something far more valuable: respect. As she left the grand dining hall, she could hear the soft chatter of the guests behind her. But this time, it wasn't about her place in the world. It was about her strength, her instincts, and her courage. She had proven that sometimes, the most important people in the room are the ones no one expects to make a difference. The next few days felt like a dream to Emma. The once cold, distant mansion now seemed like a place filled with opportunity and possibility. Her days were still filled with cleaning, serving, and keeping the house in order, but now there was a shift in how people saw her. It was subtle at first, the way the staff smiled at her, the way Harrison McAllister greeted her with a nod as she passed by. But it was enough to make Emma feel different, to make her believe that perhaps she could belong in this world, even if just for a moment. But as the days passed, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that things were changing in a way she didn't fully understand. She was no longer just the maid's daughter. She was someone who had earned the respect of the people around her. She had shown them all something they hadn't seen before: courage, intelligence, and integrity. But as much as she tried to embrace the new attention, a part of her still felt uneasy. It was difficult to shake off the years of being invisible, the years of being nothing more than a servant in the eyes of the rich and powerful. One afternoon, as Emma was dusting the grand piano in the living room, she noticed Harrison standing by the window, staring out at the city below. His expression was serious, distant. She had seen that look on his face before, the look of someone weighed down by the pressures of the world. It was the same look he had worn when he had first arrived at the mansion, confident and powerful, but with a hint of something deeper, something more fragile. "Emma," he said, his voice low but steady. She froze for a moment, unsure if he was speaking to her or someone else. But when she turned, she saw that he was looking directly at her. "Come here," he added, his tone softer this time. She hesitated, then slowly walked over to him, her heart racing. He was the billionaire, the man with everything, and she was just the maid's daughter. It felt surreal to be standing so close to him, especially after everything that had happened. "You've proven yourself to be more than just a maid," Harrison said, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity she hadn't seen before. "More than anyone expected, including myself." Emma looked down, unsure of how to respond. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from someone like Harrison. "I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I think you deserve to know," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not who you think I am. I've built this empire, this mansion, but it's never been enough. I've spent so much of my life chasing after success that I forgot what it feels like to truly connect with people, to see them for who they really are." Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she listened to him. She had always thought of him as the man with everything, the one who had it all. But now, hearing him speak like this, she realized that even the most powerful people had their own struggles, their own insecurities. Harrison let out a long sigh, his gaze turning back to the window. "I know you probably don't want anything from me," he said, "but I want to help you. I want to give you something. A chance. A real chance to do whatever you want with your life." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected anything like this. She had always kept her dreams to herself, always told herself that people like her didn't get chances. But now, standing in front of Harrison McAllister, she couldn't help but wonder if this was her moment. "You don't have to give me anything," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm fine. I just want to do the right thing, to be honest." Harrison turned to face her, his eyes softening. "I know, but sometimes, doing the right thing isn't enough. You need the opportunity to show the world what you're truly capable of." Emma was speechless. She had always dreamed of something more, but she never thought it would come like this, from someone she had once thought was unreachable. "I'm offering you a chance, Emma," Harrison said. "I'll make sure you get the education, the support, the resources you need to make your dreams a reality. You're not just the maid's daughter anymore. You're someone with potential, and I want to help you realize it." The room was silent for a long moment, as Emma tried to process what he had just said. Could this really be happening? Could she really have a chance at something more? She had spent her whole life invisible, never dreaming that someone like Harrison McAllister would ever see her for who she truly was. But now, everything was different. She was no longer just a shadow in the background. She was someone who could finally take control of her future. Harrison smiled, seeing the disbelief in her eyes. "Take some time to think about it," he said gently. "But know that the offer stands. You deserve it, Emma." The following weeks were a whirlwind for Emma. She had always been a quiet, invisible presence in the mansion, but now, everything was different. Harrison McAllister's offer was still fresh in her mind, and she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was on the verge of a major transformation. It felt unreal, almost too good to be true. A chance to do something more, to rise above the life she had known for so long. She had never imagined that someone like Harrison, a billionaire with his own empire, would see anything in her. But here she was, standing at the crossroads of her future. Emma spent her days trying to process everything. She kept telling herself that she wasn't the kind of person who accepted handouts. But this wasn't a handout. It was an opportunity, one that she had never had before. The idea of leaving the mansion, of stepping into a world where she could be more than just the maid's daughter, filled her with both excitement and fear. She had no idea where to start or what her next steps should be, but she knew one thing for sure. This was her moment. As she walked through the halls of the mansion one afternoon, deep in thought, she saw Harrison again. This time, he wasn't the confident billionaire. He was the man who had given her a chance, who had looked past her status and seen the potential within her. He was sitting in his office, looking over some documents, when he noticed Emma standing in the doorway. He smiled at her, the kind of smile that made her feel like she wasn't just a servant, but a person of value. "Emma," he said, his voice warm, "have you thought more about my offer?" She hesitated, her hands nervously folding in front of her. "I don't know if I'm ready for something like this," she said softly. "I don't know if I deserve it." Harrison's expression softened. He put the papers aside and looked directly at her. "You don't have to be ready, Emma. No one ever is. But you do deserve it. You deserve a chance to find out what you're capable of. His words hit her harder than she expected. For the first time in her life, someone believed in her, truly believed in her. She had spent so many years being told she wasn't enough, that she didn't belong in this world. But Harrison had seen something in her, and now, she had to decide if she was willing to take that step. I want to do this, Emma said, the words coming out stronger than she had intended. I want to see what I can become. Harrison smiled, nodding in approval. That's all I needed to hear. Over the next few days, Emma met with tutors, advisors, and experts who would help her navigate this new path. They spoke about education, skills, and the opportunities available to her. She was introduced to a whole new world, one that wasn't defined by her background or her past, but by her potential. It was overwhelming, but in the best way possible. As she sat in her first meeting, listening to professionals discuss her future, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. For the first time, she was being treated like she had something to offer. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't just the maid's daughter. She was someone who had a voice, who had a choice, and who had the chance to change her life. Harrison's support had given her the courage to believe in herself, to take that first step into the unknown. As the weeks passed, Emma threw herself into her studies, working hard to prove that she could succeed. She didn't want to disappoint anyone, least of all Harrison, who had given her this incredible opportunity. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she had control over her future. The mansion, once a place where she felt like a ghost, had become the backdrop to her transformation. She was no longer just a servant in the shadows. She was a young woman with dreams, and she was determined to make them a reality. As the months passed, Emma's life began to transform in ways she never imagined. The mansion, once a place of isolation, now felt like a world of endless opportunities. She was no longer just the maid's daughter. She was a student, a young woman with a future ahead of her. She threw herself into her studies, determined to prove that she was worthy of the chance Harrison had given her. The tutors and mentors who had been assigned to her were impressed by her dedication and intelligence. She was a quick learner, absorbing everything they taught her with a hunger she had never known before. Emma had always been a diligent worker, but now she was working towards something greater. Her days were filled with lessons on everything from business and finance to communication and leadership. She learned about the world beyond the mansion, a world that had always seemed so far out of reach. The mansion was no longer just a gilded cage. It had become her training ground, the place where she was developing the skills and knowledge to make her dreams come true. One afternoon, as Emma sat in the library studying, she overheard a conversation in the hallway. Harrison was speaking to one of his business partners, discussing a new project that would take his company to the next level. Emma listened intently, fascinated by the way Harrison spoke with authority and confidence. He had always seemed like a distant figure to her, someone who had it all. But now, hearing him speak so passionately about his work, she realized that he had fought for everything he had. He had built his empire from the ground up, and his success wasn't just about money. It was about the relentless pursuit of his goals, the same pursuit that she was now learning to embrace. As the days went by, Emma found herself not only excelling in her studies, but also gaining a new sense of confidence. She began to see herself in a new light, not as the maid's daughter, but as someone with potential, someone who could one day achieve great things. One evening, after a particularly challenging day of lessons, Emma sat down with Harrison in his office. He had always been kind to her, but tonight, there was a different energy between them. He looked at her with a sense of pride, as if seeing her for the first time. "You've come a long way, Emma," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "When I first met you, I saw someone who was afraid to dream. But now, I see someone who is ready to take on the world." Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she looked at him. She had never imagined that someone like Harrison, someone so powerful, would see her like this. "I never thought this was possible," she said quietly. "But you made me believe in myself." Harrison smiled, his eyes softening. "You did all the work. I just gave you the opportunity to see what you're capable of." Emma nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had come so far, but she knew there was still so much more to learn. "I'm not done yet," she said, her voice filled with determination. "There's so much I still want to achieve." Harrison looked at her with a knowing smile. I have no doubt you'll do great things, Emma. You've already proven that you're capable of anything. As Emma left his office that night, she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement for the future. The path ahead of her was still uncertain, but for the first time, she felt ready to walk it. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was someone with ambition, with dreams, and with the drive to make them a reality. And as she looked up at the stars above the mansion, she realized that the world was hers to conquer. As the weeks turned into months, Emma's life continued to unfold in unexpected ways. The mansion, which had once been a place of quiet desperation, now felt like a place of opportunity, a place where she was no longer just a shadow in the background. She had grown into her new role with confidence, embracing her studies, and making strides toward a future that once seemed impossible. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was becoming a person in her own right, someone who had the potential to achieve greatness. One morning, as Emma sat at the kitchen table with her tutor, reviewing a lesson on business strategy, she received a call that would change everything. The voice on the other end was calm but serious, and it made her heart race. It was a call from Harrison. "Emma," he said, his tone steady but urgent. "I need you to come to my office. We have a situation." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Emma could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the kind of shift that only came when something significant was about to happen. She quickly gathered her things and made her way to Harrison's office, her mind racing with questions. What could be so urgent? When she arrived, Harrison was waiting for her, his expression serious. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Emma hesitated for a moment before taking a seat, her curiosity growing. Harrison leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "I've been asked to lead a major new project," he said. "It's something that could change the future of my company, and I want you to be a part of it." Emma's eyes widened in surprise. A part of the project? She had spent the past months learning about business, strategy, and leadership, but she never imagined that she would be included in something this big. "What kind of project?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Harrison smiled slightly, sensing her hesitation. "It's a new venture," he explained. "A startup focused on renewable energy. We're looking at ways to revolutionize the industry, make it more sustainable, and ultimately change the world." Emma's mind raced as she processed the information. A renewable energy startup? The kind of project that could shape the future of the planet? She had never imagined she would be given the chance to work on something like this. Harrison continued, his tone now filled with conviction. "I've been working on this for a while, but we need someone with a fresh perspective. Someone who isn't bogged down by the way things have always been done. You've shown me that you have that perspective, Emma. You're not just thinking about the here and now, you're thinking about the future." Emma felt a rush of emotion. She had worked so hard to prove herself, and now, here was Harrison, giving her the opportunity of a lifetime. "I don't know what to say," she said, her voice soft. "This is all so unexpected." "You don't have to say anything right now," Harrison said gently. "Take some time to think it over. But know that this is your chance to make a real difference in the world." Emma sat in silence for a moment, her thoughts swirling. The opportunity was overwhelming. She had always dreamed of something more, but she never imagined it would come so suddenly, so unexpectedly. She had spent her life working in the background, watching others take the lead, but now, she was being given the chance to step up, to make her mark. "I'm in," she said finally, her voice firm. "I'll do it. I want to be a part of this." Harrison smiled, his eyes lighting up with approval. "I knew you would," he said. "You're going to do great things, Emma. I have no doubt about it." As Emma left his office that day, she felt a sense of excitement and anticipation building within her. She was stepping into a new chapter of her life, one that was full of promise and possibility. The future was no longer a distant dream, it was within her reach. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly ready to take it on. The weeks that followed were a blur of excitement and hard work for Emma. Her involvement in Harrison's new renewable energy project was more than just an opportunity. It was a chance to prove herself on a global stage. She threw herself into the work with a fervor that surprised even her. Every lesson she had learned over the past months, every skill she had honed, was now being put to use in ways she had never imagined. The project was ambitious, aiming to revolutionize the way energy was produced and consumed. Harrison had gathered a team of experts from all over the world, and Emma, though new to the world of high-level business, was given a seat at the table. She worked alongside engineers, environmental scientists, and business leaders, each contributing their expertise to the project. Despite the overwhelming nature of the task, Emma felt a sense of belonging. For the first time in her life, she was part of something important, something that mattered. Her role in the project focused on the business strategy, helping to develop plans for how the new technology could be introduced to the market. Emma's insights, shaped by her unique perspective and experiences, were invaluable. She quickly gained the respect of the team, not just because of her hard work, but because of her innovative ideas. She had never thought of herself as a visionary, but working on this project made her realize that she had the potential to think beyond the immediate and envision a future that others couldn't see. As the months passed, Emma's confidence grew. She was no longer just the maid's daughter, lost in the shadows. She was an integral part of something that could change the world. Her relationship with Harrison also evolved. He had been a mentor to her, guiding her through the complexities of business and leadership, but now, she saw him in a new light. He wasn't just a billionaire with an empire. He was a man who genuinely cared about the people he worked with, a man who saw potential in others and helped them grow. Harrison had always treated Emma with respect, but now, he was actively helping her cultivate her skills and prepare for a future beyond the project. "You're doing great, Emma," he told her one day, his voice filled with pride. "I'm seeing more and more of the leader I knew you could be." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had come so far from the shy, uncertain girl who had first entered the mansion. The confidence and determination she had developed over the past months had turned her into someone who could take on any challenge, someone who could make a real impact. The project was progressing well, and soon, they were preparing to launch their first major product, a sustainable energy solution that could revolutionize the industry. Emma's role had become more prominent as the project gained momentum, and she found herself speaking at meetings, sharing her ideas and strategies with confidence. The young woman who had once been afraid to voice her thoughts was now leading discussions and helping shape the direction of the company. As the launch date drew closer, Emma couldn't help but reflect on how much her life had changed. It felt like a lifetime ago that she had been cleaning the mansion's floors, uncertain of her place in the world. Now, she was standing at the forefront of a project that could change the world. She had proven herself, not just to Harrison and the team, but to herself. The future was no longer a distant dream. It was here, and she was ready to take it on. The night before the launch, Emma stood outside the mansion, looking up at the stars. The world felt vast and full of possibility, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. She wasn't just someone who worked in the background anymore. She was someone who had made a difference. And as she stood there, looking at the world she was about to step into, she knew that this was only the beginning. The day of the launch arrived, and Emma stood before a crowd of investors, industry leaders, and press, her heart racing with anticipation. The project she had worked so hard on, the renewable energy initiative that had started as a dream, was finally ready to make its mark on the world. She was no longer the shy maid's daughter. She was now the face of innovation, a leader in a field that could change the world. As she looked out at the sea of faces in the audience, Emma felt a wave of pride wash over her. It wasn't just the success of the project that mattered. It was the journey that had brought her here. The hours of study, the late nights spent brainstorming ideas, the moments of doubt, and the triumphs along the way. She had proven to herself, and to everyone around her, that she was capable of achieving greatness. Harrison stood beside her, his proud gaze on Emma as she took the stage. "This is it," he said quietly, just before she stepped up to the microphone. "You've earned this." His words were simple, but they meant everything. With a deep breath, Emma stepped forward and addressed the crowd. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Today is not just about launching a new product. It's about creating a future we can all believe in, a future that is sustainable, innovative, and full of hope." The room fell silent, all eyes on her as she spoke. This project has been a labor of love, of dedication, and of collaboration. It's been a journey that started with a simple idea, a way to change the world for the better. And now, here we are, on the cusp of something truly incredible. Emma paused, taking a moment to look out at the audience, her eyes scanning the faces of those who had supported her. "I've always believed that the future is in our hands," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "But it wasn't until I had the chance to be part of something this groundbreaking that I truly understood the power of what we can accomplish when we work together. This isn't just about one person, one company, or one idea. It's about all of us, coming together to build a world that we can be proud of." The crowd erupted into applause, and Emma felt a rush of emotion flood over her. She had done it. She had gone from being the invisible maid's daughter to standing at the forefront of a global movement. The road hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every step. As the applause died down, Harrison joined her on stage, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've changed everything, Emma," he said with a smile. "Not just for this project, but for the world. I'm proud of you." Emma smiled back, feeling a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. "I couldn't have done it without the support of people like you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me." As the evening continued, Emma felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had not only helped launch a revolutionary product, but had also proven to herself that she was capable of anything. The girl who had once felt invisible, who had been confined to the background, was now a leader in her own right. And this was just the beginning. As the night wore on and the event came to a close, Emma stood outside the venue, looking up at the stars once more. The world was a vast place, full of possibility, and for the first time in her life, Emma felt ready to take it all on. The mansion that had once been her prison was now a distant memory. She had outgrown it, just as she had outgrown the girl who once thought she wasn't enough. The future was hers to shape, and nothing could hold her back now. She had found her place in the world, and she was ready to make her mark, to show everyone that no dream was too big, no obstacle too great. Emma had not only changed her own life, she had changed the world. I hope you enjoy this amazing journey of transformation and success in our latest story, a captivating addition to the world of millionaire stories. In this powerful tale, a young girl from humble beginnings rises to become an influential figure in a groundbreaking renewable energy project. With determination, hard work, and support from unexpected places, she breaks free from the shadows and steps into a future full of promise. This is not just another success story. It's a testament to the power of self-belief, the strength to overcome obstacles, and the unwavering pursuit of dreams. This story embodies the essence of millionaire stories, showing that anyone, regardless of their background, has the potential to change their life and the world. As you follow her journey, you'll witness the lessons learned, the struggles faced, and the triumphs achieved. This narrative proves that every millionaire story begins with a single step toward greatness. From the mansion that once felt like a prison to a leadership position in an innovative startup, the protagonist finds herself in a position she never thought possible. The lessons, the mistakes, and the victories lead her to realize that the power to succeed lies within everyone. As the world of millionaire stories continues to inspire and shape dreams, this story stands as a powerful reminder that your past does not define your future. Watch as the young girl turns her life around, proving that anyone can rise to the occasion and make their mark on the world. Discover how ambition, grit, and the right opportunities can shape the most remarkable millionaire stories. You won't want to miss this heartwarming and inspiring tale.